Today on Heinz Barbecue, we're doing St. Louis style ribs. And really looking forward to cooking these because it's been a while since I made some ribs, so come along and find out how we do it. So St. Louis style ribs, one of my favorite pork ribs. These things are economical, easy to get your hands on, and you don't have to do a whole lot of prep work. We got these from Costco. They're by Swift. A couple other companies out there sell this rib that's already pre-cut. Your local butcher will probably do the same for you. They're a little bit more expensive, but it saves me a lot of time because I've got a lot of other things going on. So let's get into a really quick way to just put these guys together. Another reason why I like ribs is because they only take about 6 hours to do, and you can get them done even faster than that if you'll push the temp on them a little bit. So let's cut these guys open and see what we've got. Cut them down the belly here so we don't score the top of them too bad. Knife needs to be sharpened a touch. So, and we don't do a whole lot on our ribs. Very little bit. Just a really basic trim. So here's our rib. We're going to come in and find any big kind of flaps. Like this guy right here's got a big flap on it. We're going to cut that off. So we'll save all these trimmings for sausage or whatever we decide to come up with. So you've got this kind of tag right here down here at the very bottom of the rib. It's a bunch of extra skin that's hanging out there. Find your first full bone and trim it off. No different than anybody else's videos out there. So, and then I like to come in and just round those sharp corners off a little bit. I'm not going to trim any of this excess fat. So we got some excess fat right here. So we're going to leave that on there because I like it for flavor. And as you get up to the top of that rack of ribs, you've got a much bigger bite there, which I really enjoy personally myself. But if you see the extra fat on there and you want to take it off, it's no big deal. Just take your knife and skim some of it off. So like I said, love these ribs because they're already shaped up pretty nicely. So comes to the next question, membrane. Do we leave them on or do we take them off? So depending on what I'm doing, typically if we're doing only, a handful of racks of ribs, I will take them off because I think it does make them a little more tender. It's a really easy way. You can just stick your fingers under here, grab a paper towel, and pull that membrane up. Or you can slide a butter knife under it. I'm going to take the membranes off of these ribs because I do like it a little better. But if we're doing 20 or 30 of these, we're not going to sit here for 2 hours and pull the membranes off. These just ain't going to happen. So this guy right here is being a little slick. But typically, just like that, you can get it pretty easily and it pulls right off. So, and that is not good eats. Don't put that in your sausage. You'll be very upset. So, got one other little piece here, and that is it. So, shaped up, ready to go. So now it's time for the seasoning. So what we're going to do for seasoning is I've just got some kosher salt here. And we're going to put a pretty generous layer kosher salt on top of this rib and on the back side, and just kind of a quick run back there. We're not really going to let this sweat in too much because I know it's going to do its thing. Next thing we're going to do, we got some Heinz barbecue rub here. Use whatever your favorite rub is. If you want to know what this rub is, I've got a video out there on how to make it, but what's in this one is definitely a little different. I'm going to do a new video on what we've got in this rub. We've added about 6 more ingredients to it, and I think it makes for a really complex but super simple rub that you can put together yourself, and I think it's really tasty. So we're going to come back and do the exact same thing with that. A pretty good coating on top of it. Come back around those sides. So press that in a little bit. I don't want to over season these because I do think that it affects the smoke flavor that comes on them. So that's about as thick as I'm going to go. We're going to turn around on the back of the rib and do the exact same thing. Come back in with our seasoning here. And then if you want to, kind of dump off your excess and just kind of stick your sides in it. Well, you got a good bite on there. So that way we're not wasting any seasoning. So, and voila, you've got one seasoned rib ready to go on the smoker. We're gonna let these set for about 2 hours and then we're gonna get them on the smoker. Oh, hey there. So something we want to touch on is how we get Zeus fired up. So there's no substitute for good wood. And the way I like to fire up Zeus is with Jealous Devil charcoal, the lump charcoal. I've talked about it like 1,000 times. I think it works really good. The next thing we do is we just get some, whatever we've got dry. So in this case, I had a bunch of red oak laying around that was really dry, and I'm just trying to get a good coal bed built in here, which you can see we're kind of getting there. The smoker wood I'm using is pecan. So let me show you a part on that. So wood selection. Today we're going to be using pecan because we're cooking pork, and I think pecan goes really good with pork. That being said, this is not store-bought pecan wood. You can see the grain structure in this and kind of just how fresh the wood looks. This stuff's probably been drying for about 7 months, which is about where I like my wood at. You can see the bark on there. Get good wood. In my opinion, you can't make good barbecue without good wood. It is probably the thing that produces the most flavor on the barbecue itself. Once again, in my opinion, store-bought wood that's kiln dried just doesn't have any life in it. It's not going to produce a really good flavor on there, so I'm just throwing that out there. The second part of this is once this stuff burns down into coals, whatever wood I've chosen on there, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this stacked in there in a log cabin style, which means I'll lay 3 of these down and then 3 on top of it just like this, and that'll give me a pretty good fire. And I'll do some more techniques or different things as far as how the wind's blowing, how much air I want to get in there, whether I want to cold smoke the food when we first put it on there, but there'll be more videos of that, doing specific methods of how to control your fire, and I'll just kind of sprinkle them in there as we do cooks. So hope you guys like this tip. So we got the ribs on, we got our fire built. We're going to check on these guys about once every hour just to kind of see how the bark's coming along. Probably about 2 to 3 hours in, I'm going to start spritzing these. This smoker's running about 170 degrees, in between 170 and 90 degrees. I'm going to cold smoke these ribs. I've never done it before, and I just want to see what the flavor profile tastes like. Maybe it's something we'll do again, maybe not, but I've always wanted to try it. But at about that 3 hour mark, we're probably going to start spritzing, but we're going to check them every hour to kind of see how it's coming along, see if we're getting any dry spots. So let's give them a little time. All right, so it's been about an hour. Let's take a look at these guys and see what we got. All right, so we got a little color. Kind of dry, but not anything too terrible. We're definitely going to have to pump the heat up on these things a little bit because they're getting good color on them, but they're not cooking as fast as I'd like them to. So I'm going to bump the heat up on them and keep cooking. All right, so we're at the 4 hour mark, and I've came out here and peeked on these just a little bit here and there. I think they're going to look pretty good. Let's have a look. Oh yes sirree, man, buddy. Got some dry edges going on. So we're going to spritz those just a little bit. Got some apple cider vinegar here. I'm just going to spritz these guys on these edges where it's just drying out just a little bit. I'm not going to do anything too major because I want that fat to keep rendering. And we're running these pretty low and slow. 250, 225, somewhere in there. So, but just hitting the dry spots, that's all. All right, we're at the 6-hour mark. Things are looking really good. Gonna get these off, show you how we wrap them, and I think that's gonna be about it. Probably toss them in the oven for a long rest, probably 2 to 3 hours, and then we'll cut into them and see how they taste. All right, so we got the ribs off, got them all out here. Let them cool down just a touch. This is a barbecue sauce that I found that I really like. It's Gourmet Warehouse or Gourmet Warehouse. It's a Hawaiian barbecue sauce. I cut this with about half apple cider vinegar. We're just gonna lay it on top, wrap them up, throw them in the oven, let them come down for a nice rest. Depending on how you're cooking and what you're cooking on will depend on times and temperatures. I'm not really gonna go into that. If you're cooking on an offset, yours may be smaller or bigger than mine. So the chances are I do all of this by feel. So as I pick these ribs up, we want to see them just kind of start to crack a little bit right there in the skin. That's telling me that these guys are probably the fat's rendered where I want it to be, and the way I want the bite to come off the bone is about where I want it. As it kind of steams a little bit in the tinfoil, it's going to cook it a little bit more, and that will get us to where we want to as far as how I like my ribs as far as tenderness goes. That'll wrap them up. All right, so that's one rack wrapped up, and we're going to do all 6 of them the same way. Throw them in the oven, and like I said, we're going to just let them come down for a soft rest. We're probably almost at about 200 degrees on these, so they'll probably spike a little bit more being wrapped in the tinfoil and set in the oven at 140. Probably come up to, a little over 200, and then they'll start to taper down. We're looking for that 140 mark. We'll cut into them and give them a try. All right, so 2 hours later, we've got the lights on out here, as you can tell, and it's dark. So I misjudged the temperature on these a little bit, and they were not where they needed to be. When I got them inside and probed them, we were only at 160-ish degrees. So what I did was I threw them in the oven at 300 degrees for about 2 hours. And what ended up happening was something kind of unique that I can't really explain. The ribs taste like ham. And we also didn't give them a really good rest. We popped them out and just kind of sliced into them because me and Lauren were really hungry and we wanted a rib. So super interesting. After we give these an overnight rest, I'll be interested to see if they still have the same ham-like kind of consistency and taste. They've got a really good bite. They don't really, they're not fall off the bone. They're a little bit more than a little bit of a tug, but they're really unique. So let me show you one of them. So yeah, really interesting. I really like the rib, but we both agreed that it had it's got a ham taste, which is just like super unique. Really good flavor though. I'm gonna take one right here out of the center. Big meaty ribs. So that's what we're looking like. pretty good looking rib. It's the inside. Can't really tell the smoke ring because these things are still super hot, and I should have let them rest longer. But yeah. So let's line up here and take a bite. So you can see the bite on it. Get another bite off the other side here. These are super juicy. But really good. The texture's really good. The flavor's really good with the pecan. At first I didn't really like it, but now it's kind of really growing on me. So there it is. The pecan ham rib, I guess you could call it, if you wanted to. It's so unique. It's still a little undercooked is what it is. But it tastes just like ham, but like a pecan smoked rib ham. I'm definitely going to play with this recipe and do more like this. So we'll take them into the old workplace tomorrow and get some more feedback on them. Find out what other people think about them. But that pretty much concludes today's program. Super happy with the cook. Ran out of time per usual. Found out a really neat way to cook ribs like a ham. The seasoning's really good. The layer of salt is pretty perfect. It's not over salted. I think it's just right there where it needs to be. I think that's kind of critical on pork or any food, any type of meat. Salt just always adds, that kind of underlying layer of flavor. So, but thank you guys for checking out the channel. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the likes. Thanks for just checking stuff out. So, until next time, keep them burning.